Hello everyone, my name is Ross the Alchemy Miniaturist, and this is another Stretching Your Box, so you get more out of it. Since there seemed to be an overwhelming amount of support for the how many Space Marines can you get out of one box, I decided to go ahead and do another one of those videos. I'm sure by now you've seen many videos on getting more than one Great Unclean One from one box. Well, two Great Unclean Ones and a Rotigus, but that's beside the point. The point is, 3 Greater Demons from one box and just a little bit more money. So where do we start? Well, we start with building the very first Keeper of Secrets, the way that the box says so. But I didn't want to build any old Keeper. I wanted the first build to be Shalaxi Hellbane, the named Keeper. The reason why I wanted to build this one is a super simple reason. I think that they are the most superior looking Keeper of Secrets that there is. But you're not here for me to tell you why I'm loving Shalaxi. You're here because of what happens pretty quickly when I'm done this initial build. As you may or may not know, I have a 3D printer. I have the Elegoo Mars 2 Pro 3D printer, to be exact. And honestly, I love it. I've printed a great deal amount of bits and parts and yes, even some models, mostly from Puppets War, but definitely there have been other models that have appeared on that build plate of mine. And to keep on with my emerging tradition, I wanted to get the absolute most out of the box that I bought. Now, prior to the first video in this series, I did not know that Australia suffers from what is colloquially known as Australia tax, which, plain and simply, is a markup of products because they are shipped to Australia versus, say, to Canada. Now, Canada and Australia's dollar value are about the same, yet what I pay $190 for, Australia pays about $243. This is the actual price of the Keeper of Secrets for both of our countries. At the time of filming this script, the Australian dollar and the Canadian dollar are not 1-to-1, but they are really close. This is another reason why I stand by my statement of don't police people's choices for their spending of this hobby. Everyone is valid. This is, at the end of the day, a hobby, and hobbies are supposed to be fun. So if someone, like me, wants to print some extra parts to get the most out of their Keeper of Secret box, let them. If someone doesn't, that's okay too. Anyhow, back to the topic. Shalaxi is done, and I have these parts here. 2 more heads, a right pincer arm, a left pincer, a right arm with a sword, a left arm with the hand and claws, a left hand holding a whip, some more rear cloak or drapery, and some accessories. Now comes the fun part of finding the STL parts. I was lucky and found a file that has all the necessary pieces I need to use. Now comes the fun part of finding the STL parts. I was lucky and found a file that has all the necessary pieces I need to use for all of these parts to be used up without any worry. Link will be in the description for the website as always. It actually came with both a prude and not prude version of the torsos. So naturally, I chose the prude version to make editing and playing these in public a little less worrisome. One thing the 3D printing community I've seen doesn't tell you is that the time length that the slicing software, and I use Chitubox, tells you is an estimate and not what it is actually going to take. I was kind of frustrated with this fact. If the software told me, say, an hour, it would be closer to an hour and 15 minutes. Not a huge deal, but enough of a bother to trip me up a couple of times when I would come back 3 hours later expecting the plate to be fully up and the timer said I still had an hour to go. I wrote down all of the times, both what Chitubox said and what the actual time to print each plate was, so that I compare. The estimated time for all 6 of the plates that I needed to print was 25 hours and 56 minutes. However, the actual time was closer to 31 hours. A fair bit different, but not the end of the world. Like I said before, I'm not mad, just disappointed. Why can't both the estimate and the printer be much closer? I have to enter my printer details into Chitubox so it knows the size of the build plate. So you'd think it would be closer, right? Well, I can't do anything about it. If you know why this is, please let me know. With all the parts printed, I could get to the next Keeper of Secrets building. I totally forgot to buy Superglue Activator, but it wasn't as much of a problem this time as it was with my Chaos Space Marines, so I'm pretty thankful for that. While I build these models, why not give me a comment and subscribe? It's free and it really helps me out knowing what you'll like to see on this channel. I have a couple £100 worth of ideas that I want to do for you, and subscribing is the best way to see those videos fresh when they're done. Whew! Finally! These 2 Keeper of Secrets are built. With them built, you can actually see that I've used all of the parts in the kit. I know I will be running Shalaxi Hellbane in my Slaanesh army, and hoping to be able to summon at least 1 more Keeper per game extra with the depravity points. Honestly, I cannot praise the prints high enough. The quality of the sculpt is really good, and they stand up on their own quite well. Their bases are currently on back order, so I cannot build them for this video, but I will make a short showing how I have built them. If you have any kit that you'd like to see me get even more out of the box, let me know in the comments. But that's it from me, so while this trio is spinning, let me say, keep your brushes wet and your models painted. Goodbye.